Hi everyone, I'm Sonya Solock, a professional development specialist at Istation and a former classroom teacher. Welcome to today's Red Cape Classroom Update. Today we are going to cover learning stations and talk about how you can create successful learning stations in your home. So let's get started. First of all, I kind of want to take you to the classroom level and talk about learning stations in the classroom because that's where they're normally used. So a learning station is an area in the classroom where students work alone or with one another and using instructional materials to explore and expand their learning. It's a place where there are a variety of activities that are used to reinforce or extend learning. And here's the key: often without the assistance of the classroom teacher. So learning stations are really commonly used in primary grades, but they can be used throughout all of the elementary grades. And the reason behind learning stations in the classroom is management. So teachers use learning stations so that they can pull and work with small groups of children while the other students are rotating through the various learning stations independently in the classroom. So learning stations at home might not only free up some of your time now that you've become your child's teacher, but it can also help to reinforce routines and schedules that are so important for our young learners today. Let's talk about some examples of learning stations that teachers commonly used in the classroom. So there were reading workstations, writing workstations, math workstations, science and computer workstations, and listening workstations, to name a few. And please feel free to type in the comments section more ideas if you're a teacher and you're watching this of learning stations that parents may be able to adapt and use in their homes, because there are a lot of them. So let's talk about making learning stations successful in your home. The first thing you want to think about is space, right? I don't have a very big space, so I might think about doing a lot of my learning stations in the same area, but you can designate different areas of your house for different learning stations. It just depends on what you have and what your needs are. The second thing you want to think about is organization. Right? We don't have all that lovely space and all of those great cubbies and storage containers that teachers have in their classrooms. So we need to think about what we can store and organize our materials in for our learning stations. So you could use baggies, paper bags, plastic bags, Ziploc bags. You can use empty boxes, empty coffee cans, whatever you have laying around that you can house and store your materials in, because the purpose is that when your child goes to a learning station, everything that they would need to make that learning station successful would be readily available for them to use, and then to be able to easily clean up and put away when they're done. So another thing you need to think about is your learning station rotation. So I'm going to bring you on over to my refrigerator to give you an example of a rotation. All right. So on my refrigerator, I have a really good example of a weekly rotation that you can use for a learning station. So it's just got the Monday through Friday listed at the top. And then underneath, I have 4 different workstations. So the idea is that if it's Monday, well, let's do Tuesday because today's Tuesday. So on Tuesday, your child would start with a writing workstation and then move to an ABC word workstation, and then move to a computer station, and then finally move to math for their last workstation. Now you might be a little overwhelmed. I used an example with 4 workstations or learning stations in there. Please know that you can start with just one workstation or learning station a day until you get more comfortable with adding more in. The next important thing is learning station expectations. So it could be really helpful if you create with your child a chart. And this is super simple. I just put an I for this is what learning stations should look like, and an ear for this is what they should sound like. So for example, if I just have one child in my house, I should see that child working the whole time, cleaning up all their materials when they're done, getting started right away, especially when they're transitioning from one workstation to another. What I might hear is I might hear my child using a quiet indoor voice to read, or just because they're talking to themselves while they're playing. I will hear materials. I will hear materials getting used. And I might hear them reading. If you have multiple kids, you can have them working at the same workstation at the same time, or you can have one child in one workstation and another child in another, and just keep rotating like that. If they're working together, it's really important that you include sharing materials for what you would see if you were watching them in these workstations. And also what you would hear is you would hear them saying please and thank you to each other as they share. So after you're comfortable and you've created your weekly schedule and you've talked about your learning expectations, I want to talk a little bit about how we can start to give our children controlled choices in our workstations. And so I'm going to bring you over to a workstation area that I created in my kitchen. So follow me. So over here, I have the writing learning station. I have all of the materials all laid out and ready that my child would need to be successful in this station. I've gone over expectations. So the fun thing about learning stations is as you get comfortable with them, you can start creating controlled choices for your child in those stations, meaning that when they come to the writing workstation, they're not just going to sit down and blindly write. I've created, if you come a little closer, a handy dandy list of all the things that the child can do in this learning station. So they can write a story, or write a letter, or make a card, or a how-to book, or write a poem. They can make a recipe or a list, right? Giving your child those controlled choices helps to motivate them. And because learning stations are so common in elementary school, I would highly suggest that you talk to your child about whether or not they were using them in school before your home became their school, because I guarantee that if they were, they're going to have a lot of really great ideas of things that you can set up and do in there. Not only might your child have great ideas, but you also can check in with your child's teacher to find out if they were using learning stations. They may have called them centers. There are a lot of different names that are used depending on the school to call these activities as the children are rotating around. So learning stations, workstations, which I think I've already said a few times because that's what I called it in my classroom, and centers. And you also, if you are a user of Istation, can access your child's parent portal and go to resources. And we have a whole lot of activities and games that you could take a look at, print out if you wanted to, that you could incorporate into your different stations around your home. Finally, my last tip to you about making learning stations successful in your home is to let your child share with you something from a learning station every day. It's so important to celebrate success. So this could be a story that they wrote. They could talk about their favorite book that they read, or just what their favorite workstation or learning station was that day and why. So thank you so much for joining me today. Visit istation.com for more information on iStation's home instruction resources. And thank you for being a part of the Red Cape Nation. Have a great day. Bye.